Carbolic V2. This is a super safe and effective natural anabolic. Not only is this product going to help you increase protein synthesis, which basically means muscle recovery and growth, it also may inhibit myostatin, which is a protein in your body that is known to inhibit muscle growth. This is a complete natural anabolic that works through multiple different pathways, has multiple trademarked ingredients. If you are a natural athlete looking for that edge, Carbolic V2 is what you need. Get yourself some.
All right, guys, welcome back to the Pro Physique Code. We've got a lot of exciting things today, and Lexie has a question for you guys because we want to know.
We really want to know where you guys are listening from. So if you're listening on YouTube, because unfortunately, if you're on the podcast, if you're just listening on Spotify or Apple, you can't comment. But if you're on YouTube, go and drop a comment. Let us know where you're listening from or where you live. Because I feel like most of our listeners are probably within the US. But hey, I know we also have some people in Europe, maybe even Australia, Asia. So tell us where you're listening from.
Yeah, it's last week we got such a good response from you guys, letting us know how long you've been listening. I feel like we want to get to know our audience, and it's growing pretty rapidly, which is exciting. I feel like we're having a good impact, and we're going to talk today about ways that coaches ruin their clients, and it's probably going to be some things that you don't necessarily think of, right? I think we all know there's some typically bad protocols out there.
Yeah, and I mean before we get into the topic, because I feel like we're all very passionate about this, let's touch on the exciting announcement that we are going to. I think we maybe touched on it a little bit last week, but if you are on the West Coast, or even if you're not on the West Coast and you want to come to San Diego, we are hosting a weekend Command the Stage event in San Diego the week before the Olympia. So it's the weekend before the Olympia, which is like October 2nd or 3rd. So yeah, we're coming to the West Coast. First time we've ever done a seminar out West.
It's going to be one of our best Command the Stages ever because, the thing we've been doing for a few years now is every time we run one of these, Jamaica, who is our event planner, takes notes and we figure out what sponsors love us. We figure out like the swag bags that people get from these events is amazing because we do have some people that just love to be a part of this community. I know Nixie Hair Extensions is going to be excited for this. We'll have her involved this year.
Yeah. I know Jamaica and I coordinated Angel
We'll
Competition.
have reaction energy drinks.
Yeah, there's going to be energy drinks. Angel Competition Bikinis is donating some stuff.
I'm going to talk to Shoe Fairy again. She's always been very generous. TLF has always been very generous. But the idea is that it's a women's only event where we are really going to focus on training. We talk about this all the time. Are you training A, with the proper technique, B, with the right intensity? You're going to have experts, obviously, like the three of us, Brett Contreras, Lana Dunbar, kind of just putting you through the paces and making sure you guys are doing the right things. Obviously, we're going to do a few presentations talking about our individual areas of expertise. But I think my favorite part of it is the camaraderie. Is just we have a few planned events. We make sure there's time for some shenanigans and some tomfoolery and some fun. But for me, that's the fun is spending time with all you guys and really getting to enjoy the community aspect. Because if you're listening to this podcast, there's thousands of people listening to the podcast. Potentially your best friend is out there. You haven't met him yet. And a lot of times these events bring those type of people together.
I was going to say that, Paul. I mean, some of our clients, one of mine and one of yours, I think they train pretty much almost every day together.
Every day.
And they never even met before.
You're talking about Sonia. I know who you're talking about. Yeah. So the thing is, because it's Brett's San Diego location, the spots are a little more limited. We don't have as many spots because we want to make sure everyone has a good experience. And it's right in Pacific Beach. His gym is right on the beach. And he's actually partnered with another gym in Pacific Beach that we're going to get to use. So we're going to have multiple locations in San Diego in October. And
I'm
again,
so excited. I
you know,
love San Diego. Last time I was there was a few years ago, and I actually remember going, my mom had a work trip, and she's like, if you want to just come and, stay with me and do your own thing, you can. And I just had so much fun, like exploring the gyms. They have like gyms on the beach, which is so cool. Like not in the sand, right? But I remember going to this one gym that was like literally on Pacific Beach, and it had a rooftop, and it was like overlooking the beach. And it's just such a fun,
Mhm.
fun city.
yeah, I'll
And
probably
it's
take Monday and go to the zoo there. They have a sick zoo in San Diego.
Ooh, I'll go with you if you do that because I'm gonna just go straight from there to Vegas. So
Yeah.
it's not the cheapest event in the world. It's because it's a small event. It's an intimate event, and
Well,
it's
I
very
mean,
limited.
compared to I've seen some of these events, we keep our costs very minimal. I've
Yeah.
seen some of these events cost $2,500. We're under
No,
$1,000
we're way
all
under
in.
that.
And
Yeah.
that includes meals, things like that. But did you see the flights?
um,
No.
I was texting Jamaica and I sent her them last week. And I told her for you and I to go from Tampa to San Diego direct flight, which is kind of unheard of. It was so inexpensive. And then flying from San Diego to Las Vegas for the Olympia, $39 on Southwest. I was like,
Crazy.
what?
Wow.
So
Yeah.
because Fort Lauderdale was more expensive than San Diego as far as like the cost of like getting there. So yeah. And I think honestly, we're doing it on the West Coast, hoping, the people on the West Coast who say, hey, come to the West Coast actually show up. But
Right.
you've also got people from either Australia who can get a direct flight to the West
True.
Coast of the United States, Hawaii, things like that. So either way, just want to put it out there, guys, for you to be a part of. And please don't ask us about it like a week before. Hey, I didn't know this was happening.
Yeah. Yeah. And then
Did we announce the dates here? Did we mention the dates?
Yeah, it's on the page, prophysique.com/events. It's all up there. All the information is there. First weekend of October, October 2nd and
Yes.
3rd. And the schedule's already laid out too.
cool. And then we also have Paul, you want to shout out our transformation challenge
Oh,
real
the
quick?
challenge is starting in, I think 3 weeks, 3 or 4 weeks. The 90-day transformation challenge, $25,000. It's $50 to enter. Obviously, if you guys are listening to this podcast, you're probably competitors. But if you got friends and family that are just looking for something for that next goal, it's an amazing event, private group, and every time we do it, we provide a little more value. So yeah.
Yeah.
And anyway, so let's talk about what's that, Evan?
Oh, no, I was saying I have a few guided coaching spots available. I had stepped away from doing that from the Transformation Challenge for a little
Yeah,
while. I did a few last time, really enjoyed it. And two of the people actually ended up being competitors out of it and competing. So they
it's
started the
it's
Transformation
so
Challenge and it
rewarding.
turned into
It's
it.
so rewarding.
It
Like I
is.
coached two people in the event, and they both finished up and both want to continue coaching with me, and I'm like excited because
Yep.
I usually only coach competitors.
I
Yep.
opened up a few slots too last week too. I was like, I'm gonna open up a couple slots. So yeah, I think it's a really good way. I've done it before. It's a really good way, I think, for some people to kind of get a kickstart like back into
Mhm.
it, right? Like people that have maybe lived this lifestyle before, maybe they've competed, they've kind of fallen out of it for a while, and they just kind of want like a kickstand to get them going again. I think it's a great opportunity for that.
And this last one was only 60 days, and I had two girls lose almost 30 pounds in that 60-day time frame with it, which
Crazy.
was crazy. And without pushing anything wild either. I mean, they happy to be pushed. They wanted to be pushed. Like, this is what I want to do. We worked to get there. We were able to actually reverse into the end of the challenge too, with still getting all their goal weights. So you get what you put on. You get out of it what you put into it.
Yeah, it's hard to understand, especially the heavier you are and the
Hmm.
less you've been training, how rapidly your body can change.
So
Like
fast.
so rapid. Yeah. It's one thing. I don't work with the obese population very often. I've taken on a couple guys who are over 400 pounds, and it's
Hmm.
not uncommon to have 7, 8 pounds of fat loss in a week where all they did was
Nope.
track macros and do a lot of walking. It's
Yep.
crazy.
Mhm.
Yep.
But it's also like 7 or 8 pounds on someone that heavy, you can't see it.
No.
It takes a while to like see the visual changes. So it's like, losing a pound on a competitor can be way more visually significant than losing 40 pounds on someone who's got a couple,
Mhm.
extra pounds.
And that's why we're big on the progress pictures too, right? And that's why I go
Yeah.
over that with clients is they may not see it in the mirror, but we pull pictures side by side and they're like, oh my gosh, I look like a completely different human being. You do,
Well, and that's where also clothing is a huge part. Like when you
for sure.
lose weight, so many clients will, coach, I know I'm leaner, my weight is the same, but my clothes fit better. And I see it in the mirror and people are commenting. I go, hey, we're not making changes. And then lo and behold, 2 days later, coach, I dropped 2 pounds overnight.
Yeah.
Yeah. You
Yeah,
finally dropped that inflammation. So,
exactly.
um, so yeah, this topic idea came to me because Lexie had an interesting story about a client giving her some feedback because we've all had these phone calls, right? Every coach for Pro Physique has had these phone calls where we're just like our jaws on the floor with like, what is going on? But
Yeah.
I think it's important discussion. We want to talk about what is a coach's role and what is a what are the coaches doing out there that are ruining their clients, or what potential behaviors do we see where we go? And when I say ruining their clients, 2 women have died in the last 2 weeks that are 37 years old,
Yeah.
female bodybuilders. One of them, a freaking bikini competitor. Now, I don't know the details behind that, but that's obviously the most extreme. We're not really talking about people dying. But there's another part of ruining a client where you can mentally and physically damage them so much that they just don't even want to compete. Maybe don't even want to go to the
Yep.
gym anymore. They lose kind of that motivation. So I want to talk about the responsibilities and some of the things we see in here.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and now that I think about it, actually, I have another story too, because I told you guys about one before we started, and I had another call actually earlier this week, and I told the client, I said, I'm so happy that you scheduled this call because she's never competed before, and she's telling me all these things, and she had told me like in her gut she knew something was off, but I don't think she realized how like severe things could have gotten if she would have not listened to that gut. And I was like, I'm so happy you scheduled this call, but it is crazy, unfortunately, especially I think first time competitors and a lot of newer athletes I see getting taken advantage of because they just don't know what they don't know, right? Like they get into this
Yeah.
sport, they know, oh, bodybuilding, it's extreme. So it's like they don't know, ooh, okay, this coach is telling me to do XYZ. Seems a little extreme, but like maybe this is just part of the sport, right? So that's, I think, where we are really coming from in this episode too, is to just hopefully shed some light on like what's normal, what's not, what could potentially be bad, things like that. And I mean, maybe we can start. We kind of talked before we started this podcast where I said, I feel like there's a lot of coaches out there. It's like the equivalent of in a relationship, like the term love bombing, right? Where it's like you hit it hard off the get-go. That one person is like, amazing, doing all the right things, going above and beyond, and then that kind of fizzles out really quickly, right? And we see that with, I think, coaching sometimes too. A coach may send over a plan that looks amazing, extravagant, super detailed. They're super locked in and in tune with you for the first couple weeks. And then it's like you can't get them to respond. They're ghosting you or, whatever it may be. I know we talked a little bit about that before we started. So that's a thing.
Yeah. And I think another thing to add to that too is to kind of piggyback off the love bombing analogy is telling you everything you want to hear,
Yes.
right? And telling you, oh, you can do this. You can turn pro next week and you have all the tools available. You just listen to me. You start working with me and I'm going to make all your dreams come true. And a lot of us will look at that same client and just like shake our head and say, excuse me? Like, I'm not saying she can't get to that goal, but we got a lot of work to be able to get there, right? So I think that's another factor that kind of falls into the same analogy along with that. Just telling people what they want to hear to get them to sign up and commit.
Yeah, being a yes man is not always a good thing. We've said it before on this podcast. Like as coaches, we have nothing to gain by telling an athlete, like, hey, and I know you want to do this show in X months, but I don't think that's a smart decision. We need to draw out our timeline. Like we have nothing to gain by doing that. In fact, we risk potentially losing a client or having a client not sign up,
Mhm.
right? So if a coach tells you you're not ready to compete, that's probably actually a good thing in that.
Listen, it can be even worse than that because, I've had some tough calls to make with athletes and saying like, hey, you're telling me your goal for this show is this. We're not going to be ready for that. So I think we should adjust. And then I'll get an email or a text message a day or a week later saying, I think I need to go in another direction. You don't believe in me. And it's like, actually, it's the opposite. I believe in you so much that I don't want to waste your time.
Yep.
But I get it if that's what you feel. So yeah, like it's very rewarding as a coach when you tell somebody the truth, your opinion, and they go, my favorite is like, oh, thank God you said something. I was feeling the same way.
Yeah.
Yes, I love that too. Or like in the future, when they kind of, they think back and they're like, oh my God, I'm so glad you made me take so much time to like before I started prep, because I get a lot of people on the phone too that they're, they discover bodybuilding in the world of competing and they don't really quite understand everything that goes into it. And they kind of have this timeline in their head of like, oh, I'm going to reach out to Lexie and, I want to do this show in X months. And I'll try to, I'll tell them, hey, I think it would be better to do a show a little bit longer out. And then time goes on and then they realize, oh my God, thank goodness I went with that timeline as opposed to just rushing into it.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk a little
Yeah.
bit about this love bombing idea, Lexi, because I don't think people understand what we mean by that when we tell them, okay, coaches are going to love bomb you. There are a lot of coaches out there that understand that an athlete can help build their brand, build their business. And some of these coaches are very narcissistic, and some of them are highly intelligent. And what they'll do is they'll actually spot this athlete out at a show on an Instagram. They will track them down and message them directly. This to me is the biggest red flag in coaching. If you have someone who is not your coach, not your friend, someone you haven't met, directly messaging you saying, hey, you could turn pro, you could do this, you could do that. That is them actively recruiting you. That is them actively going, okay, I want this person because what they're going to be able to do for me. They don't care about your career. They don't care about what's best for you. They care about going, oh, if I can take this person and put them on my Instagram, it's going to build my credibility. And you'll recognize these coaches because they always have somebody new that's their focus. It's never the same girl every year or the same girls. It's a new person all the time. And that's
True.
because they're constantly doing that. They're constantly chasing the new shiny object.
Yeah. And when you get that new shiny object, doesn't really pan out that well.
Yeah, and I think too it's something that, as a potential client, I think something that speaks volumes to a lot of coaches is client retention too, right? Like I mean, we are in an industry, there's, you're going to have clients, clients are going to sometimes move on to different coaches. Like that's some people's just their personality, right? But I think, pay attention to the coaches that you see they don't just have, these athletes that they post about a ton for a month and then you never see anything about that client again because they're working with another coach. Like I feel like there's a pattern and a trend. You'll see sometimes some coaches just go through these clients, there's no retention there, and that's not always a good sign all the time.
Well, reach out.
Yeah.
I mean, this is what I would, if I was looking for a coach, that's what I did when I hired my first coach. I reached out to one of his clients and said, hey, what's the experience been like?
Yeah. I think that's a super smart idea is reach out to these current clients and not just say, how's your experience been? Say, how long have you been with them?
Yeah.
That's an important thing too. And if that client has been with that coach for an extended period of time, it's probably a good thing. Probably a good thing. Not always, but probably a good thing. You know, it's everyone has different experiences with different coaches, right? And another thing to think about, kind of with the love bombing thing, and a little bit more an extreme side with it is if a coach gets an athlete and they do amazing their first show and then fizzle out afterwards, it's probably because they press them to a point that they're never going to be able to get to again, either with PEDs or with the food and the cardio, and the body doesn't respond right or the rebound's horrible, and they never get back to that point again. An athlete and a coach should be getting better each show. Not maybe nailing it every show, but you should see a consistent pattern of things going up, not up and then immediately back down.
Yeah, I
Absolutely.
call them YOLO coaches because you'll see a lot of coaches. They'll even get a lot of pro
Yep.
cards, they'll get a lot of wins, but they'll also, that client will just start to get worse and worse and worse over time because they don't actually have the skills to coach at that level. They just know how to run people really hard and into the ground. And so you'll see some incredible things because you're adding PEDs, you're taking food away, you're bumping up cardio, but that is a short-term solution. And it gets a lot of people out of the sport.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I feel like the love bombing, I guess we can call it coach bombing. I don't know what you want to call it, but that's yeah, I see that and I hear about.
Well, we are human beings with an ego, and when somebody who has a voice in the space, and you don't know the history or the story behind them, but if they reach out to you and they tell you good things, I mean, I've had girls come up to me after a show and be like, "Coach, the promoter of the show really loves my look and wants me to do their
Yeah.
other show. I got to do it." And I'm like, "You
Oh,
realize they say that to everybody?
yeah,
Everyone.
Like
I
that's
have.
their job. It's called promoting." I don't want to I don't want to alarm anybody out there, but if you go to a strip club and you give the girls money, they're going to say really nice things to you.
What are you saying, Paul? They don't really love you?
No, Evan, we talked about it. We talked about it. Amber really does like you. It's okay.
Oh, awesome. Okay. Gee, that was worry.
Guys,
But
guys.
the idea here is that, like, so yeah, we are all fragile creatures, and we've all, at some point, somebody said something to us, we were like, oh man. And sometimes it is genuine. Sometimes you do get genuine feedback from someone. And I'll be honest, every now and then, one in 100, I'll stop somebody and just be like, so I was in the Atlanta Pro this weekend, and there was a guy competing who was absolutely one of the most genetically gifted dudes I've ever seen. It was his first show ever. His posing was horrific. But just if he would have just stood still on the stage, he would have done better. But he was trying to pose like this, and I'm telling you, it looked like Ray Lewis just walked off the football field and was like 7% body fat. So like I didn't, I'm not trying to recruit him. I don't want to coach him. But as I was leaving, he was standing there, just talking to his coach, and I was like, "Was this your first show?" And he goes, "Yeah." I go, "Listen, man, this is your thing. I don't know how much you know about this sport, but you've got the gift. If you want to go far in this sport, you've got it. You've got all the tools. So just keep going, man. You look amazing." And he was like, "Oh, dude, thanks so much." There are those encounters,
For
but I could
sure.
have followed it up with like, "Oh, here's my Instagram if you're looking for a coach." No, man,
Yeah.
you don't even know my name. So
There's a difference between giving compliments and being like, "Hey, you look amazing. Wish you the best in the future." That's big. That's big. It's very different than saying, "Hey, you have all the talent. Let me help you get there." Or, "Hey, what's your Instagram? Let me follow you," and then start messaging and following up. Because a lot of it's a sales pitch. They start soft. It's not
yeah.
just them coming in being like, "Hey, I want to coach you." It comes in and starts off with a compliment here, there,
Oh
then a
yeah,
follow up,
it's
then a
called grooming.
post.
It's
Yeah,
called
it's
grooming.
grooming.
And I've heard
Yeah.
coaches, shitty coaches, talk about this. They actually have a process where they just start hitting people up and they see who responds and they can kind of tell who's open to it and who's not.
Hmm.
Um, so
Yeah,
that to me is the first red flag
There's
of a coach that's going to be a problem.
Paul, we were at
I,
Amateur Olympia like 2 years ago, and I had a couple athletes walk off stage, and there were some other coaches I know that were more getting started and didn't have a lot of clients that were standing out there talking to almost every single person that came out that door.
Yeah, oh yeah. Listen, I've had coaches walk up to my clients that just got Olympia qualified and say, "Hey, if you need help with coaching, let me know." And I'm just standing there like, really? Fine.
Hmm.
no, I've had clients before send me screenshots of DMs just and thankfully like, we're close enough to the point where they do share it with me, but they'll just laugh. They'll be like, so and so just reached out to me. She knows I work with you, but she still reached out to me, trying to get me to schedule a consult with her and just yeah, it's
That's an unfortunate side of the business. And you know what? It all comes to light. Everyone knows who coaches are. It doesn't take long for that stuff to kind of surface. And unfortunately for the athletes, sometimes it's too late. By the time they recognize it, they go, "Oh, I didn't know about this." That's why I hope this podcast helps people. And we're not saying if someone DMs you, it's automatically a red flag. There are just genuinely nice people out there. But always look at it from the perspective of what is the reason, what is their angle.
Hmm.
right, right.
I
Busy
mean,
coaches who pay attention to their clients don't have time to be DMing other people's clients,
yeah, I don't know
Yeah,
how people have time for this.
especially after prejudging at a show. I had a client once show me a coach had messaged her after prejudging.
And
crazy.
look, there's a lot of times I'll be backstage with clients and I'll walk around and I'm just smiling. I'm a happy person, right? And if people are walking around and talking, I'll be like, "Everything good? You good? You good?" I'll just ask. And if they say, "Yep, cool. Have a great day." Like, because a lot of people backstage, there's a lot of first time competitors and a lot of people got nerves. And I want to help people feel comfortable. That's it. That's it. I got my own clients
Yeah.
over here to deal with.
I personally, just because I know my standing in the fitness community, like I'm not famous, but in a bodybuilding show, I think there's a lot of people that recognize me backstage. They've seen my videos, they've
Hmm.
seen my, clients. So I purposely don't talk to a lot of people because I think it'll come off funny if I'm just
Yeah.
chatting everyone up. But if someone engages with me, yeah, I'd love to chat with you guys. But I'm not going to start a conversation because if their coach is around, they're going to be like, "Oh, there's Paul, poaching." No, I've never poached. That's never been my MO.
That's a better way to put it, Paul. Wait, when we start engaging with people and we start talking, I'll ask if they're good. I don't just go up to every single person backstage and ask if they're good. That would be a little bit weird.
Evan's just handing out business
You
cards.
know,
Yeah,
you
you good? You good? You good?
Um, let's talk a little bit about another problem I see with coaching um, that can be problematic for, hurting a client, and that is working outside of your scope of practice or
Yeah.
kind of overstepping the boundaries of the coach client situation.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I feel like we see a lot of, I mean, I'm sure this has always been a thing, but I feel like there's been a lot more of it over the past couple of years, especially with, like, not that this is a new concept, but, people talking a little bit more openly about hormones and gut health and stuff like that. And I think as coaches, we all have a general understanding of that, right? Most of us have been to school for, for this, but yeah, I do feel like there is a very fine line between some people stepping out of their scope with certain topics.
It
I
can
mean,
be
I
tough
think there's a
because
lot of that.
bodybuilding inherently has a level of, things are kind of hidden. It's not out there. It's contest prep. It's not the real nutrition and training. It's secret, right? It's these approaches that people don't understand. I saw people message me and be like, "Coach, when do I get the real peak week? Like, what's the secret?" And I'm like, "There's no secret. You just
Yeah.
get shredded, and then you get on stage, and you look great." Because I think sometimes you see these peak week plans, and it's like, "Oh, we're all of a sudden gonna, you know, sit in the sauna for 2 hours, cut out all our sodium, drink 2.5 gallons of water." It's like this formula that all of a sudden you're going to look amazing when we all know that's the recipe to look your worst.
Yeah, I
Some
hate the
people
truth.
want that. They think that that's what bodybuilding. There's like so people are willing to accept like, no, my coach wants me to eat what's the what's a food like kombucha 4 times a day after each. I'm like, oh, that's the secret. You're doing this one little weird thing. Yeah.
Right. Or like, talking about being out of scope. I mean, I've heard scenarios where people will tell me, yeah, my coach gave me this, like they claimed it was a certain compound or whatever, like in a baggie, or they sent me certain, things like I just and that's very fishy to
Well,
me.
so the podcast we did last week talking about females and hormones and drugs because of the young lady Hannah Hussein who's doing videos about that topic. She talked about the fact that her first coach gave her injectable. He told her it was an injectable, but it was Anavar,
Injectable Anavar. And this was like 10 years ago,
and it
too.
wasn't available. So she was obviously
Yeah.
injecting like you thought it was Tren, right?
She thought it was Tren. Yeah. That's what she thought it was Tren. Yeah.
Yeah. So like, I mean, that's just blatant. Listen, if you're prescribing drugs, you better be sure you know what you're doing because there is going to become a reckoning when these athletes have been dying. Something's going to happen, and all it takes is one, and then it's called a class action lawsuit, and it's going to be a precedent for all these other athletes that have been hurt by a coach to go back throughout the years and start suing. um, yeah, you better know what you're doing, and that's why I stay out of it. If my girls are working with PEDs, we're going through a hormone therapy clinic.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. That's exactly my approach to anytime I have somebody who brings up the idea of maybe wanting to go that route. I always say let's get in touch with the hormone clinic first, just because yeah.
Oh, you want to talk about hurting somebody? Look at their blood work and tell them to do something, and then they get sick. That's called prescribing, and you're supposed to be a medical professional to do that. So, it's not even a gray area for me. It's a very black and white. I'm not going to jail, or I'm not putting someone's health at risk because I want them to look a little better. And I'm willing to, trust that there are coaches that are willing to do that stuff out there, and that's fine. But be very careful when the coach that's prescribing your stuff A, doesn't have a background to do it, and his only answer is like, oh, this is what my other clients have been doing, and this is what this client does, and that's that's a
Yeah.
recipe.
I think another big one, I've heard this from a number of clients, which is just wild to me that someone would do this, is they say, well, my coach just gave me a pill and I don't know what it was.
Oh, I've heard
That
that.
happens a ton. I'm like, how, first of all, why would you take something you have no idea what it is? And as a coach, if you're not saying, hey, this is this, and you're being very forthcoming with whatever this is, that is a massive red flag. Like, what are
Yeah,
you do? I don't either.
I
The only thing I can even think, like playing devil's advocate with it, maybe it's like a dandelion root pill, and he's acting like it's something fantastic and magical that maybe psychologically is
there
going
is
to
a
play a
placebo
role in
effect,
that.
right?
There is. Phil
Like,
Viz talked about that on one of his podcasts that he was working with open bodybuilder client that we know, Paul. I'm not going to say it named here. And he had him believe that there was something special in Chips Ahoy cookies, something special with how they were made that caused him to dry out and be harder than another regular type of chocolate chip cookie. And this was like
well,
during
I
a
mean,
um a
aren't
refeed
those the
period.
ones made by the Keebler elves? So
That's true.
maybe,
It's elf magic. Yes.
okay,
Yes.
could
So
be.
obviously he's come out and said that he was bullshitting him. He was giving him a placebo effect with that. He was telling him
Well, but
something
there's
to try to
actually
put him
a
in a good
study,
place.
I can't cite it verbatim, but there is a study of they took a group of men and told them they were on steroids, and they took a group of men and told them they weren't on steroids. They put them through the exact training program.
Mhm.
And guess who made incredible gains? Yeah, the
I
group that
can speak from
believed.
personal experience with this actually. One of the best that I felt in my entire life. I was going through a hormone clinic that is no longer a hormone clinic because they were not a good one. They were very, very shady. And I had heard rumors that their testosterone was not real. I was like, well, it seems real. I feel great. And I went and got my blood work done, and my test was, I think, my estrogen was zero because the anti-estrogens worked. So my estrogen was zeroed out, and my testosterone was like 90. I almost had no testosterone in my body
And
because
you
the
felt good?
testosterone was fake. There was nothing in it. And I was taking an anti-estrogen they had given me. So my testosterone was zero and my estrogen was zero.
And you felt great.
I did. Yeah. Weirdly enough. Weirdly enough. I felt awesome. This was about 6 years ago. I
Well,
felt great.
we're both twinning with our reaction drinks.
Winning reactions. Man, these cans are hard to get on camera. There we go. They glow.
They do though. So I
Another
can speak to that placebo thing. It is a real thing. It's a real thing. It
Well,
for
and I
sure
think
is.
this can also be the placebo effect of a coach. I think some people coach hop because they're like, "Oh, this coach has the secret sauce." And one of the most vindicating things for me as a coach is when someone's like, "Coach, it's just not working for me. I got to go to this new coach." And I watch them lose,
yeah,
and I go, "Okay,
I
maybe
think
it wasn't
that's
me. Maybe it's, they think, but they also, as soon as they get with that new coach, they train harder, they're more consistent,
Yep.
they believe that was going to be it. So they get an initial boost, but then the truth sets in and it's like, oh, it wasn't the coach, it was the person.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's an unfortunate part of this industry, and just something that it is hard. I think as coaches, it's hard when you lose a client, especially if you've invested so much time into them. Um, and yeah, but I think some people do think the secret sauce is, and oh, let me try a new approach, or let me try a new coach. And hey, I'm not saying that's never the answer. Sometimes you do need a new approach, but I think some
Oh,
people
yeah.
moment something stops working, or the moment, like, let's say you're in a phase where progress is not as quick, let's say a building phase, right? Like, you're not going to be seeing these crazy rapid changes week to week. It's a bit of a longer process, right? I think the moment sometimes people start to feel like maybe they're not seeing results, they feel like, oh, rather than sitting there and just giving it time, which is truly what they need, they hop to another program. But not for nothing, and again, I'm not saying it's a bad thing to go to a new coach, but not for nothing, when you start with a new coach, you also have to realize you're kind of starting from ground zero in a way of, like, this new person is having to learn your body. You're having to give that some time, so it's you're also having to spend some time considering that has to be a factor too.
Yeah, I think a lot of athletes don't consider that, right? They think they just walk in and everything's going to be hunky dory. And look, sometimes a change of scenery is good. Sometimes it's important, right? I mean, sometimes just going to a new gym can help with that. And if you've been with a coach for a long time, I understand the thought of being like wondering what else is out there, right? Like, is there something a little bit different? I don't take it personally when that happens because I did it myself as an athlete. So I
It's probably
understand.
my favorite conversation, Evan, is
Yeah.
when I've worked with someone through 3, 4, 5 years. We've done a lot of things and it's been good. And they just go, you know what? I just want to see. Because if you're a good coach, they're going to go see and they're going
And
to
then they're going to
either
come back.
send you a message and be like, you know what? That's happened to me multiple times this year. I've
Hmm.
had girls leave and work with coaches that have more cachet than me. And I get a message like, oh man, it's not what I thought it was going to be.
Hmm.
It was great up front, but it's been terrible in perpetuity. And if you're a confident, good coach, like they'll figure it out. It's um, yeah.
Wish them the best of luck. That's it. Like wish them the best of luck. And if it
I've
works out for them, awesome,
never
amazing.
once had an athlete leave and said anything. That's probably another big red flag. If you're like, hey coach, I kind of want to try something else, and they're like, you'll never succeed without me. I've heard that
Yeah.
all the time. You'll
Oh,
fail without me. The
or
athletes are the talent. The
yeah, or
athletes.
I've heard like an athlete say that, hey, like I reached out to my coach, told him I didn't want to continue, and like then they just never said anything. And I get it as a coach. Sometimes it's hard when you get, an athlete that maybe you've invested a lot in and they choose to go another direction. But you still need to give the common courtesy of acknowledging, when they reach out and they want to move directions. You don't want to just ghost them. I just feel like I've heard that a lot too, where it's just like people are like, yeah, I sent my coach an email, never heard back from him. And I'm like, okay.
And this is a little off topic too, but I do want to touch on this. If you're an athlete leaving a coach and that coach has been there for you, supported you, listened to you, especially if they've gone above and beyond for you and you want to leave, look, it's nothing personal, but be straight up, upfront, and honest with them. Don't ghost them. Don't ghost them. That's the only time that I've ever been upset or bothered with that is when I poured a lot into it and then an athlete completely just disappears. Right. And a lot of times it's like, well, I just didn't know what to say. I felt awkward. Like, I just, I know you've did everything for me and been there for me. And I just didn't know how to handle the situation. I'm like, well, you definitely didn't need to handle it like this. Right.
Yeah,
So just
no,
give them the common courtesy, just the same as if that treat others the way you would want to be treated.
Yeah. Yeah.
absolutely, absolutely. Yeah.
Coaching. So
Fine.
for those that are listening, I'm going to play my violin right now. Coaching is very hard because we're not just prescribing macros and training programs and nutrition protocols and coming up with your strategy for competing and paying attention to the standards. These are personal relationships that,
Yeah.
you know, I've had, I'm not going to say any of you guys, but definitely some of the coaches for Pro Physique have called me crying because a client left them. And they wanted to ask me how I handled it because I've never, showed that side. But I don't sleep sometimes for days at a time, weeks at a time when a client leaves me that I have felt I've poured everything into, that I've
Yep.
believed in. And then, it's when you care about what you're doing and you care about your clients, that's normal. Um, so like, yeah, like we as coaches, I know all of us, I don't know all coaches, but like it impacts us a lot.
It
Um,
does.
and it doesn't mean it was the wrong thing to do. But there's nothing more valuable than when a client comes to you and says, like, this is what's happening and this is why. That really changes the the kind of narrative in your own head. And this is what I tell when someone comes to me and they're like, "Hey, I want to switch to you. What do I say to my coach?" I say, just tell them the truth. It might be hard for you to say, and it might be hard for them to hear. But if someone tells me, listen, I need another coach because of this, I now have the option to make that better or go, that's not something I'm willing to do. If it's something that I can fix, I have to recognize that, okay, I did mess up. And I've messaged clients 6 months or a year later and been like, you know what? Thank you for telling me that. The reason I do a video call or a video for every single reply now is because I had clients at a show, they were all sitting together chatting and they were like, Coach, we all decided that we don't really know what you mean sometimes in your updates when you send us stuff. I'm like, explain what you mean by that. Well, you write your sentences, but we don't know if you're angry, if you're happy, or you're sad. And I thought, you think I'm angry? Well, we don't know your tone. And you're very to the point. And I'm like, but that's how I would want to be told. And they're like, well, we're girls. We don't.
Yeah.
And I said, okay. And I looked up a way to send videos. And guess what? Problem solved. Now people know how I feel because I'm like, good job this week, Jasmine. You did a good job. Or I'm like, we're struggling. They know exactly how I'm feeling.
Yeah. Oh, Paul, all you got to know is just a lot of exclamation points, a lot of emojis, and they're happy. That's it.
Apparently, I get in trouble because I don't put emojis in my text messages, and I should be
Yeah.
doing that too.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think like one thing I've learned about you, Paul, is you like, yeah, that's just how you text. You don't do
Y'all have talked
information.
about this before. Yeah.
And it's, but you learn, like, I know at this point you're not mad. And I know, like, I'm
Mad.
somebody, I use a lot of punctuation and emojis, but I also, just not you, but I know you're not mad when, like, you send something back with no exclamation point or no punctuation at all, right? Like, that's just you. But something else that I think is important to discuss, because I hear of this a lot, is I think the best example is like a male bodybuilder coach who coaches their bikini athletes the way that they have been coached for their prep, or not, it doesn't even have to be like a male bodybuilding coach. It could also just be a coach who they coach all of their athletes how they're used to being coached or how they've always prepped, right? I've had athletes before tell me, my prior coach, she was a little conservative, in her growing season. She was afraid to gain weight. That's kind of how she approached my growing seasons, like, kind of that trickle down effect. And not that that's always a bad thing, right? But it's not always a good thing when a coach is literally just coaching all of their athletes how they've been used to being coached or how they approach their own preps, if that makes sense.
Absolutely does, Lexi, because it goes the opposite direction too of like someone who didn't want to gain weight in the off season. A lot of these coaches, especially if they're guys, they will say, we need to bulk you up first. And they'll put on a ton of fat on an athlete on top of that for
Yeah.
no reason. And they have 6 weeks to put on weight and they end up 10 pounds heavier. Like, what sense does that make? That does nothing for us, nothing for us. Same thing when it comes to training. I'll see some athletes training program that need a good 10 pounds of muscle on them to be competitive. And I will look at their glute training program. It looks like a Laura Lee program. Not that she doesn't train hard, but it's a lot of like kickbacks and a lot of auxiliary work and not much compound movements at all. Very little, very little. Nothing that's actually going to put decent size on you. Right. And the same thing that we talked before about like protein. You'll see some girls that are 120 pounds on, 215, 220 grams of protein. It doesn't make in, but then their carbs will be low and their fats will be low. It's like, I don't understand this.
No, and if you guys don't believe that, I literally got a client of mine currently who sent me one of her old protocols, and this coach literally had a female athlete on 277 grams of protein. And like that's absurd. I can't even imagine trying to go to the bathroom eating that much protein. Like that's insane. But
Well,
yeah,
let's
anyway.
let's talk about it. I think this is where we can talk about some real information because the other thing we can talk about, we've been talking about red flags and philosophical things. The two major things I also want to cover is um, competition frequency. I think bad coaches tend to focus on the frequency with which their clients compete at too high of a level,
Yeah.
where they're like, "Oh, this person makes me look good. Let's just keep them going." Right. The other is the physical things, like okay, the nutrition side. Protein, carbs, fats. There are definitely some things that I've seen that are just like shocking. Cardio protocols, training protocols. So, and then we'll talk a little bit about the psychological damage that a coach can do. So let's talk about protein, Lexi, because that's ridiculous. I can't even eat 277 grams of
So
protein.
much protein. So
No,
much.
I was baffled too. And and I sent this client back a message and I was like, I in that scenario, I'd be very curious to ask that coach, like, hey, out of curiosity, like, what is the benefit of me eating this much protein? And I think she mentioned that she had asked, and his reasoning was like, it's just going to help you to build more muscle quicker. But I'm just like, that's that 277 grams of protein. That's insane for somebody who's like 120, 130 pounds. That like a bikini athlete. That is just, it's crazy. I don't know. I don't understand it, but it happens unfortunately. And it was from a meal plan. So it was a meal plan approach. But yeah, I mean, and we've talked about this before. Nothing against meal plans. Meal plans can be great, but if you have a meal plan from a coach and like the calories or the macros aren't listed, do yourself a favor, just plug in all that food on the meal plan, plug it into a calculator like MyFitnessPal or My Macros or whatever, and just see what your macro totals end up being. Because a lot of times you'd be surprised. Sometimes these meal plans, you'll plug everything in and it is like an absurd amount of protein and like no dietary fat and no carbs, right? So just do yourself a favor if you have a meal plan and do that just to see where your numbers are.
And we won't dive too much into this today. This is way more nuanced, but like a protein is not a protein. It's not. There's usable protein and there's protein that your body really doesn't use to build muscle with that. So there's a little bit of nuance that goes into this with it. Also, another question I would have for that client, Lexie, and that coach is if she's enhanced, yeah, you can use a little bit more protein because it increased protein synthesis. But not even to that level. Like that's a silly amount with it. When you talk about being able to use more protein if you're an enhanced athlete, you're talking like maybe like 1.25, maybe 1.5 your lean body mass with it, not much higher than that. Like this isn't something you can eat double the protein and get double the results. It's not like that.
Well, it's also wasted calories because
Yeah,
once you max out the anabolic benefit of protein, get calories from carbohydrates and fats that are going to have
yeah,
positive impact on your digestion, your hormones, your performance in the gym.
exactly.
Like that much protein is going to be digestively very distressing for almost everybody. Yeah, like that's just not. I mean, I've heard of the, like 180 to 200 grams of protein for a, 120-pound girl being, that's even quite ridiculous. But
And
277.
sometimes what I'll do with a lot of ads, I know we've talked about this before, that I've started to structure some of my more refeeds or my higher days with it, is I'll drop the protein to like the bare minimum we need, and I'll up the carbs and
Yeah.
fats on those days. That
Well,
way
there's
our
actually
calories are not even much different than on our lower days on it. The macros are just shifted around for the benefit we need at that time.
so just so people can understand, like the research shows that bodybuilders quite overconsume protein based on need.
Mm.
Um, Dr. Joe and I talked about this on a podcast a couple of years ago. One of his professors at university challenged him because Joe was like, he's like, let's say he's like 160 pound, 180 pound natural pro bodybuilder. And he was like, no, I need 180 grams of protein to build muscle. His professor said, no, you don't. You need about 80. And he was like, what are you talking about? He goes, I challenge you. Eat 80 grams of protein for one semester and let's see if you add muscle. And guess what? He had been training for many years and he added muscle on 80 grams of protein a day. And so like, yeah, like I don't know the exact stat because it's always kilograms, but it's well below, I think it's zero point 0.8 per our lean body mass is kind of the
Yeah,
accepted.
the
Yeah.
minimum. Yeah.
And that's your lean
Yeah.
body mass, not your body weight.
Lean body mass. That's what people are saying. It's your lean body mass,
So
not
if let's
what you
just say
weigh.
you're a 200-pound guy who's 12 to 15% body fat, your lean body mass is like 140, 150. And then you're going to get into like, what do you need? 120 protein? Obviously, none of us are eating 120 grams of protein if we're seriously trying to put on muscle. And there may be some benefits to eating a little bit more, but there is no benefit to doubling your body weight in protein.
None.
Oh, what's funny is because like, and I have a lot of clients that will tell me the same thing, but I love protein and I have to actually find like, if I could live on one macro, it would be protein. But I have to find that I find that I actually have to like limit myself. Like I could easily eat way more protein than I do, but I also know if I go too high, I will probably have issues going to the bathroom. But I
Yeah.
love protein. It's hard to keep my protein at bay, and like I could just live on protein only.
Well, and
And you know what?
years ago, the magazines would talk about the pro bodybuilders like Jay Cutler and Ronnie Coleman eating 400 grams of protein a day. And I think a lot of us thought, oh, but those guys were also eating 4,000 calories a day.
Yep.
It's
Yeah.
hard to not get protein when you're eating that many calories.
I
Yep.
was
And
kind
that was a
of
big Chad Nichols approach too. Like he was super duper Ronnie's coach, massive high protein coach.
I remember
It's
just seeing him eat those like plates of chicken in his cop car in
yep,
that movie.
my
yep. And then
mind just
the
how expensive that lifestyle, how expensive that grocery bill would be. Oh my gosh.
back in the day, Lexi, not that expensive.
Well,
Way
now we have,
different nowadays.
I
which by
mean,
the way,
yeah, but he was on a cop salary, so I'm
Yeah.
sure it was every penny of his went to his hobby. Um, you know,
yeah.
One thing I wanted to touch on too with this is there's not always a one size fits all approach when it comes to this type of stuff. I have some athletes, Paul, I know you do too. We've talked about this, that just like eating a lot of protein.
Yeah.
And if they eat a lot of protein and their digestion
Yeah.
is good, I got no problem with that. All right. If they feel good, they're satiated, their training is good, all that's good.
It can be
I'm
great for food volume and satiety. I've had athletes
awesome.
that like, yeah, their protein's probably higher than it needs to be, but it holds their hunger at bay.
Yeah.
But I think there's also this correlation that you can eat all the protein you want and not gain body fat. That is completely false. The protein might not be contributing to your body fat, but it's your total calories for the day. So your
Yeah.
carbs and fats are now going to be, converting differently. So yeah,
And,
I fully agree. I have some athletes that are say 120, 130 pounds, females that are on 180 grams of protein because they freaking love their protein, and I can't get them to bring it down. And I go, you know what? If you love it, great. You'd be just fine on 120, 140 protein. But if you're up here and you're feeling great about it, let's roll with it.
And this,
Yeah.
I love talking about this stuff, right? Because when you talk about proteins and you can eat a ton of protein and not get fat, I think a lot of people refer to like the thermic effect of food with that and how much it takes your body to break down those nutrients, which is true. But that's typically going to be with leaner meat options with that. Once you start adding fattier options in there, the fats are going to slow that digestion down along with it. And if we're talking about macro breakdowns of what works and what doesn't work with it, the biggest change I see with a lot of athletes is when you pull the fats a little bit lower, they choose leaner meat options, which
Yeah,
means that, in especially in the United States, if you're getting like if you swap to like 93.7 ground turkey to 99% free ground turkey, it's a significant difference in calories. And that's an estimated amount of fat in that ground turkey. You don't know,
yeah,
it could be considerably more than that. So when you force athletes to eat leaner meats, typically everything moves a little bit faster, and then you add the fats on top of that. That's why I'm always a proponent of get the leanest meat you can get and then add your fats on top of it. If you do that, typically you see significant faster progress than people that choose fattier cuts of meat, at least in my experience with that has been.
yeah.
Yeah.
And that's another issue, when we're looking at how coaches can ruin clients, um, not being adaptable, right? Thinking
Yeah,
like, this is how it's done. Either get in line or get off my team. Or
yeah,
if you don't follow the plan, I don't care what you say. Um, if you got a coach that has, so I'm sure we've all had this experience, like a client will ask us a question and be almost like apologetic. I hate bothering you.
yeah,
Can I just ask you, why do you prescribe 3 grams of creatine instead of 5? And I'm sorry if I'm bothering you. And I have to be like, first of all, this is my job. Why do you keep apologizing? Well, my last coach would get mad at me. Okay. You didn't have a coach. You had a macro calculator. You had a meal plan sender. You didn't have a coach. Coaching is about that exchange of like, hey, I've got this information in my brain. Take it. I want to create autonomous athletes.
yeah.
I want to,
Yeah.
I don't want to create a super dependency. Like we've talked about this, like the longer I coach somebody, the more that changes. Like Lexie, when I first started coaching you, there was a lot of discussion. Now I don't even coach you. You coach yourself. But I got to imagine I'm still the voice in your head a lot of times where you're just like, oh, let's do it this way.
Absolutely. And I mean, I sent you a picture the other day. I was like, how does this look? Like yeah,
Yeah.
I feel like every time you start working with a client too, there's a little bit more communication that has to happen, right? Like questions that have to happen. And then it's like you learn the athlete learns you, from a psychological aspect too. And then it's just like over time, the athlete has a little bit, less and less of questions because you guys both you both understand each other really well. So yeah, but we love questions as coaches. And it's funny because like I get questions on consult calls too from clients and they're like, okay, how does your training look like? How many days a week do you have, are your training plans and all of that? And I feel like they expect me to kind of give them this answer of like, all right, all my training blocks are 5 days a week and this is what we hit. But it's like at the end of the day, all of my approaches are like, there's no one size fits all, right? That's why we have the consult calls because I have some athletes that do really awesome on a 4 day a week split. I have some that do really awesome on a 5 day a week split. Like very much so athlete dependent. There's not a one size fits all for training plans or even nutrition plans. Cause I'll get clients that also ask me like, what is your approach when it comes to like untracked meals in the off season or, you know, things like that. And again, I say it kind of comes down to the client. I have some clients that love being able to do that. I also have some clients that honestly, they don't love that. Right. So it just kind of comes down to that communication variable.
No,
Yeah.
absolutely. I mean, and I ask my clients that, well, what do you prefer?
Yeah.
What do you prefer? We can do it both ways. I think there's benefits and drawbacks to each. Let's discuss that. Let's figure out which works best for you because this is a marathon, not a sprint. I think all of us look at coaching more like that. We're not in it for like a short-term fix on there because you'll be in and out of this so fast, and the likelihood of body dysmorphia, the likelihood of honestly depression, poor relationship with food, that goes up dramatically if you try to do something super fast, especially with females. Especially with females. It is not the same as coaching men. It's very, very different.
So
Yeah.
some other of the physical mistakes, other than protein, let's talk about carbohydrates and fats. And I think really the only danger sign I look for there is extremism, zero carbs, zero fats. We
Yeah.
see that from some coaches especially when you see the protein that high, it'll almost just be
Yeah.
trace fats and zero carbs or trace carbs from like vegetables. Um, you want to mess up your digestive system, eat 200 plus grams of protein and only vegetables. No
Oh, that sounds
fat. Oh,
terrible.
you're going to be a mess.
Ugh. Ugh.
Oh, yeah.
And digestion's at a premium at the end of our prep anyways. Like it is.
Yeah,
Like
and fat is
very few
a
people
lot
don't
of
have digestive
vitamins and
issues.
minerals are only fat soluble. So,
Yep.
congratulations on eliminating the one thing from your diet that actually allows you to absorb minerals and nutrients that are in the food.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
You know
And
what
it's
creates insulin sensitivity? Coach, I just don't respond well to carbs. I'm like, oh, what was your last prep like? Well, I didn't eat carbs for months. Oh,
Oh,
wow.
yeah. I've worked with I worked with an athlete once and she had a background in like carnivore and she like we had a really hard time getting her lean because she was like just not having that carb variable to work with during prep was it didn't work well at all.
Yeah.
no, it doesn't. And look,
Carbohydrates help you burn body fat.
Yeah.
insulin
Lexie, I
sensitivity.
want you to remember your undergrad. I want you to explain the Krebs cycle in great degree.
Oh no, don't put me on the spot. I'm gonna no. My brain's been a little too it's been a little all over the place the past couple days. I'm gonna
All
let you
right.
take the
You can tell us
call.
about your HOA and all your new amenities on your new place. But
I'll
yeah,
tell
I
so
you.
just want to
like,
come cook on
don't
the
fear
stove.
carbohydrates. Carbohydrates are actually used in the process of fat utilization in the body. So whenever someone's like, oh, I'm on a no carb approach, I'm like, oh, good luck with your post show.
Yeah. I have seen
Yep.
some clients. It's super interesting though. When you give them a slight bump in carbs, their water retention level goes up like 3 pounds. It's not a ton of them, but I do have a few clients that are like that. Now, the longer I work with them, the more I realize the leaner they get, that kind of goes away, right? It
Yeah, and that
typically
could be
does for most people.
that could be from their previous approaches. Like
Yeah.
you can't just look at a snapshot of a client and be like, oh, I gave them 30 carbs, they gained weight. No, that might be because for 6 months they had no carbs. And right, so
Yep.
their body's sensitive to those things.
Yeah.
And
And
insulin sensitivity is a really big, I think, important topic to touch on because if someone's insulin sensitivity, especially their fasting blood glucose is high, it can be difficult to get them lean at times with it. So that is an important thing to work on, and it's not always a one fits all or one size fits all approach when it comes to that either. There's a bunch of different theories out there to get that. I can tell you the one thing that will help your fasting glucose go down more than anything is some cardio and getting leaner. You get that,
Walking. Yeah.
and you will be shocked at how that happens. Now, for some people, it's not as easy as that, right? That you need a little help in some certain areas, but um, the typically the higher your fasting blood glucose is, the more likelihood you are to store body fat. At least in my experiences, that's been the case.
I kind of wonder, Evan, there's not really a way to measure this. But when you talked about the client's weight going up like quite a bit from carbs, sometimes I wonder, especially for like female athletes that are a little fearful of carbs, if there's a psychological component to that, like with cortisol, right? Like
Yeah.
they're consuming carbs and they're really stressed about it. And then, weight not for nothing goes up because of that cortisol being up too. I know there's not really a quantifiable way to measure that, but I do feel like psychology probably plays a little bit of a role there too.
I think you're right. I think it does. And now that I'm thinking a little bit more about it, this just popped in my head. I think a commonality between those athletes or is they are like super anal. Like they'll cut off their meals at like 6 or 5 p.m. and they go to bed at 9 p.m. And for some reason, I'm like, spread your eating window out a little bit farther here, please. Like, just spread it out here. Your sleep's going to be better. Your recovery's going to be better. And those same athletes, I've noticed because a lot of times we get towards the end of prep, it's like AM, PM body weight. And if things start not tracking, I'm like, well, let's see your AM and PM body weight. And I want to see the difference and drop overnight. And those people that typically hold on to more water from the carbohydrates, their weight from PM to AM is very small change, maybe a pound. Right. So, just things I'm trying to figure out in my head, the more people I work with that, because it's not a ton.
That's
And I'd say it gears more towards men than women most of the times. But yeah.
it's funny because a lot of the times when I have an athlete have a big refeed day, they'll actually drop weight overnight pretty
Oh, the leaner they are for
significantly
sure.
because
When they're
it'll
leaner.
ramp them, yeah, ramp things up.
I'm more talking about athletes that aren't lean yet, that
Yeah, yeah,
are
yeah. Oh yeah, if you've
way
got
more
body
like,
fat, yeah,
yeah.
that
I'm talking about athletes that carry more body fat right now. I'm not
that's
talking,
actually
if
how
you're
I
lean,
figured
no,
out
it shouldn't be the case.
I was allergic to whey. Was I started checking my weight before bed and in the morning, and
Hmm.
the nights that I would have a whey shake and then go to bed, I would wake up heavier. And I was like, and I would typically lose 3, 4, 5 pounds while I
Yeah.
slept. So to wake up heavier and then, I would go throughout my day, and middle of the day, I'd be my lightest after 2 or 3 meals. And then I would, because the inflammation was gone, the digestive distress was gone. And then again, so then I pulled it out. I remember like, all right, I'm just going to swap out my shake and my oatmeal for like eggs and a bagel. And the next day I was down 4 pounds. I'm like, oh, there was something in that is a problem. And then I figured out it was whey.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think another physical, thing I've heard about with coaches potentially kind of ruining a client would be I've had a lot of people report to me like at the end of prep they're doing all this hit cardio, like a ton of sprints, a ton of like just like running, like a ton of maybe not just hit cardio but a ton of high impact cardio, right? And hey, I'm not
Yeah.
saying it doesn't have its time and its place. Again, everything is person dependent, but like when you have somebody doing an AM and a PM session of like intervals and hit cardio and they're eating 1100 calories like in almost stage lean, that's beating on the body. So but I've heard a lot of people tell
I'm
me
saying
that,
it, Lexi. There's no place for hit cardio at the end of contest prep.
yeah, no, well, and
If your
here's the other,
training isn't intense enough, then train harder. That should be your intensity.
that, yeah, and honestly, I've spoke about this a couple times on my recent YouTube videos, but I love, so I have my Peloton bike. I love doing that for cardio. However, before my Texas show, I cut it out completely for a couple weeks, and I noticed I felt so much better in the gym by just doing incline walking, right? And I know incline walking is the gold standard. It was more of just like it's that that mental stubbornness in me because I love my bike, but taking that out and doing more just low impact cardio leading up to show day, I felt so much better throughout the day. I didn't feel like I was a zombie by the time I got to the gym. And like at the end of the day, that's what you should focus on at the end of prep. Like you shouldn't be the best person in the world at cardio. You should be the best at training, right? And if your training is suffering because you're pushing so hard with cardio, that's not great.
Yeah. They don't give medals out for best in cardio. Right.
My light bulb moment with cardio was I'm going to reference Ronnie Coleman again in this video. Ronnie Coleman, hands down, had the greatest bodybuilding physique to ever hit the stage. Like there was years there where like it wasn't close at the Olympia. And
No.
to this day, if you ask anybody who's the greatest bodybuilder of all time, you're going
Ronnie
to get
Coleman.
opinions on like, well, Arnold raised the level of the sport, and Lee Haney won the most Olympias at the youngest age, and Dorian Yates brought the conditioning and muscularity to another level. Ronnie Coleman, hands down, the greatest physique to ever hit the stage.
Yes.
His cardio, walking on his treadmill every day and every night in front of his TV. And I said, let me try this. And I was shocked how easy it was to get lean when I just started doing treadmill walking. Um, and then you go down the rabbit hole of why, and you realize what the value is in that. And yeah, you can't always rely on that, but sometimes you got to burn more calories based on your schedule, and the stairs can be valuable and things. But like, if you can build the greatest physique of all time just by walking and training like a monster, it's probably worth a shot.
I'm gonna give a shout out to one of my clients, Marie. I've worked with her for a few years now. She came over from another coach, and I helped her into a show last year, and I had to push her extremely hard, food
Yeah.
low, everything low, like really hard, lots of cardio, double cardio, pushing her into the ground to get her remotely stage lean. This year, um, her food is considerably higher. We backed off cardio. We're ready 2.5 weeks out from the show. And the big difference she made was she just walks way more. She's
Yeah.
doubled her step count every day. And it has made a world of difference, plus some dietary changes and things that we've made. But that one factor, I think, I don't have her notes in front of me. I think we did 1 or maybe 2 weeks of 60 minutes of cardio, all prep, and everything else, we backed it down. I think I backed it down to 40 minutes this week and 30 next is probably where we'll go with it. Because her
Really?
step count got so high, her recovery is good. She feels good. She's eating more food. Her physique
That's
is
the beauty of
way
walking.
better.
It's the beauty.
Yeah.
Way better.
Steps are a huge factor. I mean, there's a reason, I'm sure you guys have gotten this before too, where I'll have a client who goes to, like, we'll say Europe on a vacation, right? And they don't even track their food, and they'll come back and they'll be so baffled, like, why is my weight down? And they'll be like, oh, what, I was also getting in 25,000 steps a day. And I'm like, the steps make
And
a
it's
big.
effortless because when you're on vacation, you're like, oh, I can't wait to walk to Acropolis, or I can't wait to
Yeah.
walk to the Parthenon, or you're walking around Greece and you're going uphill and downhill. And by the end of the day, your like ankles are sore, you walk so much, but you didn't think of it as cardio. But for
No.
some reason, when you call it cardio and you have a session, it's like, oh, cardio.
Does
Right.
anyone go to Europe and gain weight like ever?
No one ever has in the
That's a
history of the world.
serious question. I don't
They
know
don't know
a
where the
single
damn
client
food
of
is
mine that's
because
gone
I
and
promise
ever
you, I
gained
will
a
gain
pound.
weight if I go to Europe. I promise you. If
I
I go
will
there and
say,
drink alcohol and have food. Um,
I've only been to Europe once, and that was before my bodybuilding days. But I would totally be down to do that experiment, like just go eat intuitively, just walk, and then weigh myself when I get back. Because yeah, I
I
have a
want to
lot of
tell you
clients.
I want to tell you guys because we got to wrap this up here. I got one more little section to cover. I want to tell you one of my favorite stories. I had a girl, I could not get her lean. She was doing 2 hours of cardio, whatever, low carbs, 70 carbs, fats, 35, like all the things to get after it. Could not get her leaner. She was just kind of stuck. She checks in the next week and she's down 6 pounds. I probably told this story on the podcast a few times. I said, what did you do differently? Coach, I did nothing different. I'm like, you had to do something different. You just did the same cardio. Yes, I did 2 hours of cardio, 5 days a week, and I did my macros. Okay, anything changed? She goes, well, I got a new job. I go, oh, okay. Well, maybe like your stress, your sleep. Yeah, no, I got a job in a casino as a cocktail waitress. I go, so you just walk around all day as a cocktail waitress? Yeah, like 10 hours. And I go, and you didn't think to mention that before you were sedentary and now you're walking 10 hours a day, plus you're still doing your cardio? She lost 6 pounds in a week when she could not lose any weight, but it wasn't cardio because she was mentally busy. So I said, well, I guess we can pull out your cardio. And she kept losing weight, walking 10 hours a day. So
Yeah.
there is something about, I talk about this when I do my presentation. So if you guys come to the Command the Stage, you'll see this presentation I do. There is something about inflammation and fat loss. And I don't know if there's research on this. I've talked to people that are smarter than me that have educations. When your inflammation is high, fat loss will be low. It's a protective thing. I don't know what it is. Like it's something about because it doesn't make sense. You take
Yep.
somebody that's doing 90 minutes of cardio and they're on 1,500 calories, you drop them to 1,200 calories and put them on 2 hours of cardio and they gain a half a pound.
It actually makes sense to me, the more I think about this, because I have two clients that I have murdered into the ground and they barely lose a pound. They are also the highest stressed individuals I have ever seen. These small, like I've talked to them and the things that stress them out baffle me that it stresses them out. I'm like, if you worry about this and this is stressing you, how do you even live on this planet? Right. So if you think about like stress as being the ultimate fat loss, I guess, antagonist with that, if you start adding low food, high movement, that's going to build stress throughout your body with that. And especially too, when the weight doesn't move, the mental stress kicks in on top of that. And it just nothing moves. Nothing moves. I'll tell clients all the time. It's like, you're going to assume your weight's going to fall this week. I would love for it to. If it doesn't, don't worry about it.
Yeah,
Don't worry about it
it's
because it
I
will.
say that all the time. Coach, you doubled my cardio and cut my calories and I gained weight. I said, you didn't gain weight. You gained water. Your body's a
Yep.
sponge.
Yep. If
Body's
I
a
really
sponge.
set a client is stressing about their weight, I'll tell them for a couple days. I'll be like, just stay off the scale for a couple days. Like, just because sometimes some people do stress over that scale and the cortisol goes up, weight goes up along with that. So yeah. And then
But
what was
I love in this sport when things are the opposite they appear. Like, oh, I'll move more and eat less and I'll drop weight and the scale goes up. I had a girl yesterday tell me like, Coach, I don't know what to do. I'm always thirsty. I cannot stop drinking water. And I was like, oh, how much water do you drink? I drink 2 gallons a day. I go, that's why you're thirsty. Drop it back to a gallon and watch what happens. You're literally urinating every electrolyte that's ever been
You're
in your
flushing
body.
every bit of sodium out of your body.
So the reason you're thirsty is because you're dehydrated.
Yeah.
Drinking 2 gallons a day. It's like, it doesn't make sense. Like people think water hydrates you. It does not. Yeah, if you don't have enough water, but you can actually overconsume water and dehydrate yourself. Water is a great diuretic. All right, I want to go over two more things because we've been going here for a minute. This is a good topic. And if you're still listening, tell us a horror story below. Maybe we should put out a poll and have a podcast where we just tell client horror stories or like listener horror stories.
That'd be interesting. What are your last 2 points, Paul?
Last two are coaches can hurt their clients by these two things. Showing favoritism can lead to like, a loss of morale of an athlete because they're constantly highlighting this person and they're not getting attention, or they only emphasize winning.
Absolutely.
If you're not winning, then you're not doing a good job. And I think athletes already probably have a tough time with that. And so encouraging that line of thinking is bad news bears for me. We want to win. We train to win. But we talked about this before. You can do everything right and lose to someone who didn't do everything right. Genetics is powerful.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, that's the reality of this sport because we see it all the time. I mean, there are certain shows where there's maybe not a ton of competition, and then there's other shows where it's like in one class, it's like you have 5 girls that could probably all get first place, right? Like you can never control who shows up at a show either, and like the pool of athletes and the competition. So you have to focus on bringing your best and note that like at the end of the day, that's all you can do.
Yeah. I mean, there was girl power early this year. There was one of my clients, Rachel, got second in her class. The girl that won her class turned pro. The girl that right behind her turned pro this year. Like that's in one class in a single show.
Oh yeah, I had a girl compete at the Texas show last weekend, and her class was the biggest one. And I mean, I was looking at the pictures from that first call out lineup, and I was like, all of these girls had glued ham tie-ins. All of them looked phenomenal. And it was a very competitive show. And I told her, I said, you could have gone to probably any other show that same day, been amongst a different pool of athletes and placed totally different, right? But that's just something you have to know going into the sport is you can never control who shows up and how many athletes show up, but you can control bringing your best package.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure we've all had the experience where a client is very disappointed in their placing.
Of
And
course.
then they get their stage pictures like a couple days later and they're like, "Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah,
Never mind.
absolutely. Yeah,
Never mind.
sure.
I'm happy now."
Yeah.
All right, guys, let's
look,
finish this up with Lexie. Are you going to North Americans?
Yeah, I am. I have my flights booked and room and all that. I'll be there.
I know. I was trying to hype you up, bro.
Oh, yeah, thank you. No, I am gonna be
Fit
there.
model.
I feel super just like kind
The
of
debut.
calm to it, I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but just kind of over here like maintaining. So that's
I feel
think
like the new division has given me a new lease on coaching because for a lot of years I felt this immense pressure to go win a pro show, win a pro card. With Fit Model, I'm just like, let's just see what happens.
That's it.
yeah,
It's-
that's kind of where I'm at too. It's like let's just see what happens. Bring what I think is going to be my best.
I've got a bunch of girls doing Fit Model, like 8,
I got a ton.
maybe 10, and I'm like, you could turn pro. You could be 7th. I don't know. It's really going to be interesting.
Yep.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, I know I'm rooming Paul with Melanie and Brooke, so we're gonna have
Listen,
a fun.
Let me tell you something. Melanie just checked in today. She looks incredible. She's come down. She's leaner. she's going to have a shot. If we get her posing right, the 45
Well,
and over fit model, dude, it could be her day. She looks incredible right now. Same with Brooke.
shout out to Melanie, because if she just checked in today, I have to say, because she texted me a day ago and said she got stuck
The
in
travel.
she had like a flight mayhem where they
Yeah.
didn't even get like until the next day. So
In
like
Tampa too. Yeah.
yeah,
I,
it'll be a fun weekend.
I have a very, very, very important question for the both of you. I've never texted with Melanie. Does she use 3 exclamation points at the end of every sentence or 9 exclamation points at the end of every sentence?
Let me look.
Let me see if her text messages are like her personality.
That's what I'm interested to know.
No, they're not. They're not. She did use several. Well,
Yeah, yay, exclamation point. It's a fun pose, exclamation point. Easier than bikini too, exclamation point.
But only
I
single.
So 1 exclamation point per sentence. So
Okay.
that's pretty good.
Yeah, that's keeping it in bounds.
Yeah.
not
But
over.
she uses a lot of like the thumbs up and a lot of like the faces. So she does, yeah, way more than me.
I have one client, Camille, because I'm going to call out one more. Brooks and
Brooklyn's
Dakota's
mom.
mother. When she checks in, I think there's no less than 20 to 30 emojis per check-in.
Good job, Camille. Way to rock.
That's hilarious.
And when I do the
Shout out,
text to
shout out to
speak,
Brooklyn. Brooklyn is my warrior of the year. I should give like awards out at the end
yeah,
of the year. We should have like an award show. She would be my warrior. She just did her 7th show this year,
yeah. Doing
including
great, by the way.
3 overall titles.
Wow.
Um,
Yeah. Yeah, I'm excited for North Americans. So we'll talk to
it's
you guys next
it
weekend.
snuck up on me. I'm gonna be honest. I have like 20 athletes doing it, and I think it's because it's like, it's like we got people going through the season, and it's like now you've got the Masters and the Open all combined into one. So I've
Yep,
got Masters and Open Fit Model, Masters and Open Bikini. It's going to be an amalgamation. And last year, I think I won 4 pro cards there, including an overall. So yeah, North Americans usually ends up being a fun day.
for sure.
Pittsburgh is a fun city too. I feel like it's easy to get to. It's fun. So yeah, I'm excited.
Yeah, yeah. All right. Well, shout out to all the shitty coaches out there. Keep giving us stuff to talk about.
I love
Content
it.
factories will take it.
Yeah, yeah.
Well,
And you know what? If you want to know if someone's a shitty coach, they'll get triggered by this podcast.
That's
True.
not true.
All right. Thanks for listening, guys. Thanks for your comments, and thanks for shouting us out and sharing us on your Instagram stories and all those places. We really appreciate it.
Absolutely.